I'm Jack. I grew up in an apartment complex, so I always dreamed of living in a single-family home. Ever since I was a kid, I couldn't wait to grow up and buy my own house. Unfortunately, my parents passed away early, but I met my wife Mary and we were blessed with a daughter, Sarah. And since my job was going well, last year I finally bought my dream home. It's not that I want to brag, but it's a brand new house. That was my particular wish. However, my joy was short-lived, as Mary's mother suddenly passed away. My mother-in-law was a kind woman, and she really took good care of me. For me, having no parents of my own, she was like a real parent. But I couldn't mourn forever, so I decided to pick myself up and keep going. Around that time, Mary and Sarah's attitudes started to change.
Ah, there's no dinner tonight.
What? If you told me, I could have picked something up on my way home.
It's okay. We've already eaten.
What?
There's just none for you.
Their expressions became more emotionless as they said this.
Ah, Dad.
I'm home.
I want to buy a new purse, give me some money.
Didn't you just buy one?
That was then. This is now.
I can't give it to you right now.
Then why did you even come home?
Before I knew it, both my wife and daughter had started to neglect me. One Sunday, Mary and Sarah were deep in conversation in the living room. It's rare for both of you to be home on a day off. How about we go out for dinner together for a change? I tried to speak as cheerfully as I could. I was filled with a desire to win back my family. What would you like to eat? I asked Sarah, but she didn't reply. Still, I gathered my strength and spoke to Mary. Shall we splurge on some quality steak?
Maybe. Today feels like it might be a milestone day, so let's go all out and order the best.
At Mary's words, Sarah burst out laughing. I was puzzled but started to search on my smartphone. That's when it happened. The silence was broken by the doorbell ringing.
They're here.
Mary stood up happily. Is it a guest? Should I order food? Mary didn't answer and hurried to the door. After a while, I could hear Mary's sweet voice. I felt an odd sense of foreboding. As I watched the entrance to the living room.
Hey. Sorry to keep you waiting.
I was so stunned by the man who suddenly appeared that I dropped my phone. It would have been okay if it were just the man entering, but the two of them were arm in arm. They were way too close for comfort. Who is that guy? I struggled to suppress my shaking spirit and managed to squeeze out my voice.
Ah, are you Jack? I'm Kyle. Nice to meet you.
The way he spoke so casually pierced my heart. May I ask about your relationship with my wife?
Oh, she didn't tell you about us.
Sorry, he always comes home so late.
The slimy way she talked made me want to pull out her tongue. So, what brings you here? I knew it wasn't going to be anything good.
We've sold the house.
What? I braced myself for the absurd, but her words were so off the wall I screamed.
$500,000.
Is that so?
About half the mortgage is still outstanding, so take care of the rest.
She continued to talk.
I've prepared the divorce papers, and you're at fault for the divorce. If you make a fuss, you'll owe me alimony.
Me, at fault. What did I do? I was dumbfounded as I asked and stared at the green paper.
I was very lonely. You came home late every night, and got mad if dinner wasn't ready. I've reached my limit.
With that, she covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook deliberately, and Kyle comforted her just as theatrically.
Don't cry. Jack, it's time to let her be free.
Hey, if this were a play, you'd get booed off stage. You're terrible. I swallowed the words that had almost escaped and picked up the divorce papers. As I sat down, I signed without hesitation. Then, facing my daughter who had been boredly fiddling with her nails, I asked, "Your mom and I are getting divorced. What are you going to do? Who will you stay with?" My daughter looked up reluctantly and simply said, "Mom. I see."
Oh, and of course, you'll take care of my college expenses.
My daughter said without a smile. Understood. It's a parent's duty. With that, I handed the completed divorce papers to my wife.
I'll file these, so pack your things and leave.
Understood. If that's what you want. Won't you regret about the house? No, I won't. I then retreated to my room upstairs and started to pack. I didn't have many belongings, so packing was quick. Fortunately, I found a new place through a friend's connection right away. 3 days later, I left the house. I'm going now. I peered into the living room. In the living room, my wife, daughter, and Kyle were loudly packing. They were planning to live in a rented apartment for a while, having let go of this house. Whether my voice reached them or they deliberately ignored me. No one saw me off as I left the dream home I had let go. Once outside, I looked back. Like a carousel of memories, various moments flashed through my mind. There were smiles from my wife and daughter. I quietly raised the corners of my mouth and took a new step forward. The new apartment was for singles, and it seemed many different people lived there. Especially interesting was the occasional tea party in the communal space. With a cake stand, it was quite an authentic afternoon tea. At the tea party, after meeting a woman several times, we became friendly. Her name was Catherine. She spoke very calmly.
Are you getting used to the apartment?
Yes, everyone is so nice, it's a relief.
That's good. Ah, this cake is delicious.
Indeed, it is really good. As I enjoyed the same cake as Catherine, we smiled at each other, savoring the happy moment. Then, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I checked the screen inside. Catherine looked at me with a bit of concern, so I hurriedly raised the corners of my mouth. My ex-wife. Catherine murmured softly, "Ah." And laughed, "The time has come." Yes. I moved away from the crowd and pressed the call button.
Can you come over?
My wife must have been really panicky. She was shouting non-stop incoherently. I almost burst out laughing but asked gently, "What's wrong? Calm down. Where are you now?" I thought to myself that this was much better than the cheesy act my wife and Kyle had put on before, and I forced a smile. "I don't know what's going on, but I got a bunch of scary-looking documents. I'm at a cafe right now. I'll email you the location. Please come." The call ended abruptly, and a few minutes later, she sent me the address of the cafe. "Guess I'll head over." I muttered to myself and, making sure I had my valuables, left the apartment. I arrived at the designated cafe. The cafe, which looked like it would be popular on social media, was decorated in a style that my wife and daughter would definitely like. While I was thinking this, I saw them. They were so panicked over the phone, but now they were engrossed in taking photos of the sweets they'd ordered. They probably think I'll sort everything out.
You took your time.
My wife said shortly when she saw me. "It's been a while. Have you been well?"
As if I could be. Look at this.
My wife pointed to a pile of documents on the table. Wow, you've really let them pile up. My daughter wouldn't even look at me.
What's this all about? I thought your part of the home loan was done.
I began to check the documents one by one. Looks like if you can't pay in full, you'll have to file for bankruptcy.
What? What?
Like mother, like daughter. I applauded them in my mind.
What do you mean?
First of all, that house is yours and your daughter's.
I know. That's why I sold it.
That means the loan is hers too.
What? The loan agreement was made by your mother. After her passing, the debts got transferred to you and me.
You must have used up the inheritance.
I did. It was mine after all.
By doing that, you also inherited your mother's debts. My wife looked lost. She probably couldn't keep up with the conversation.
You inherited some property too, right?
I did. But I haven't touched the inheritance. And I renounced it.
Why?
Your mother knew everything.
What?
She knew everything you were doing. And what actions you would take after she was gone. My wife glared at the floor with a bitter expression. In truth, my wife and her mother didn't get along very well. So when your mother sensed her time was coming, she advised me not to use the inheritance until I could renounce it. I continued, I'm a terrible mother for suspecting my own daughter. She said, crying. My wife responded curtly, clearly uninterested.
I don't care about that. Right now, these documents are more important.
She gestured at the documents and snorted.
Do something. You're the husband. But still. Hey, wait a second.
My daughter, who had been quietly eating her cake, looked up from her phone.
Kyle just emailed me that the utilities have been cut off. What's that about? Electricity, gas, water, none of it's working.
As I watched the two of them start to panic, I just shook my head. Why would Kyle's message be sent to my daughter? That's probably because your credit card got blacklisted.
Don't say things without proof. It was working yesterday.
Then try paying here. With a scowl, my wife headed to the register. My daughter and I followed. The card indeed didn't work. My wife looked at me with a pale face, but I felt nothing.
Hey, Kyle says you should come back.
My daughter, still looking at her smartphone, spoke to us. Why have she and Kyle been emailing back and forth so much? I was somewhat uneasy about this situation.
Let's go back. You come too.
Why?
Explain the situation to Kyle.
My wife was pale, a far cry from her own plans. The possibility of inheriting debt, credit card blacklisting, and the stopped utilities. We headed to the apartment where my wife, daughter, and Kyle were waiting.
What's going on here?
As soon as we arrived at the apartment, Kyle asked irritably.
It seems I've inherited some debt and there's still a mortgage.
My wife glanced at me, urging me to explain. I sighed deeply and repeated what I had explained at the cafe. I also tried to simplify the explanation about the piled-up documents. You might have heard of a collection letter, but this demand letter is basically a step above that.
So,
You had several chances to repay, but you ignored them. And what arrived were a notice of loss of benefit of term and subrogation. Once these come, you have to pay everything at once, and it damages your credit, leading to your credit cards being blacklisted.
it's too complicated, but so I just need to pay it all at once, right?
That's right. $600,000.
What?
My wife's face turned pale, and she was speechless.
That much money? What are you talking about?
That's why I explained it, right? All I can do is explain. I answered blandly and turned to leave.
Wait. I'm in trouble. Do something, you're still my husband.
Which face is she saying that with? I sighed heavily. There's only one way.
What?
The eager smile that I used to love on my wife's face. Now, it just triggers a rejection reflex. Bankruptcy.
Ah, this is getting too bothersome. Let's just end it.
Kyle stretched and laughed.
Debt, blacklists, spare me. It's impossible.
This must be his true nature. Well, I had pretty much figured it out. My wife was the one surprised.
It's okay. Just pay it all at once. We'll use the money from selling the house.
What? You're planning to buy a condo with that?
That's why, let's just save up again. That's right. Mom's making money as an influencer.
For some reason, my daughter was also desperately trying to calm Kyle down.
That's right, if you work harder to become more popular, you'll get more offers. If Kyle helps save, we can buy that condo soon.
Kyle is making good money, huh? My wife would be lucky to make $10,000.
I thought you're earning $50,000 a month.
That's right. You said you have to make money because Dad can't, right, Mom? Excuse me. I've hit $50,000 a few times, so if we work hard.
No way. Let's just break up. Impossible.
No, I don't want to break up.
I wonder if there's any point in me being here. Tired, I decided to drop one last bomb. That bracelet is cute. Does it match Kyle's necklace? I said that to my daughter. Instantly, the atmosphere turned icy cold. The mother and child were staring at each other. The first to move gets a shot. The air was so cold, yet Kyle sweated like it was midsummer. An artistically balanced space had been created. Looks like you'll get along with your new dad. I'm relieved. I donned a mask of a smile. The stage scene from behind the mask seemed wonderfully entertaining.
What do you mean? What? So it's like that with Kyle. If that's the case, what about it? Kyle prefers someone younger.
My daughter showed a cold smile triumphantly. Her gaze pierced my ex-wife. Sadly, there was no mother and daughter here anymore. There was a group of women.
Do you realize what you've done? Mom, talking about love and romance at your age is just creepy. Be quiet. Kyle, don't just stand there, say something. You're my boyfriend, aren't you?
Give me a break. I'm not interested if there's no money involved.
What are you saying?
Good thing we didn't get married. I'm leaving tomorrow, so you can relax.
What? Can I come with you?
My daughter happily clung to his arm. They probably thought it was no longer necessary to hide their relationship. She was radiating an aura of being completely in love.
No way. You were just a thrill-seeking fling. Sure, you're pretty, but I don't like people with bad personalities.
Kyle forcefully shook off my daughter's arm and gave me a sly smile.
That's how it is, so as of now, I'm an unrelated person.
Kyle said this and stood up to leave. Are you seriously saying you're unrelated? My voice came out lower than I expected. You can no longer remain unrelated after you've destroyed a married couple.
That's because you didn't take care of your wife well.
Even if that's proven, it doesn't justify having an affair. It seemed Kyle finally understood what I was implying. Sweat appeared on his forehead. I smirked. I'm going to sue you for damages.
Stop.
My wife intervened as a last resort, stepping between us.
You have no proof. Don't take our peace away.
My wife pleaded with big trembling eyes. Sorry, but I do have proof. Your mother gathered it just in case. Tears welled up in my eyes as I said that. If something happens, open it. She had entrusted me with a safe. Inside was everything about my wife's affair. I believe it was the last thing my mother-in-law left, fearing that if I renounced the inheritance, there would be nothing left. My wife collapsed to her knees at the sight of the photos. I spoke to her gently. I'll be claiming damages from you as well. I said my parting words to them and left the scene. I returned to my apartment and enjoyed having tea with Catherine.
Did everything go well?
I managed to file for damages, so today was a huge success.
It's a pity that damages for adultery can often be discharged in bankruptcy.
It's okay because I saw their faces of despair. And given my ex-wife's pride, she might try to avoid bankruptcy somehow. Either way, she will pay for her sins. That's enough for me.
It's unbelievable to see what it takes to push a kind man like you this far.
Catherine, you're so gentle, but you get so sharp when it comes to the law.
It's my job.
Catherine blushed softly. I am definitely attracted to Catherine. Once things settle down with my former family, I plan to express my feelings. I want to try being happy again. And both my wife and Kyle complied with the damages payments. That must mean they managed to avoid bankruptcy. However, my wife lost her credibility as an influencer. Her actions and words were spread on social media. Now, she is working multiple jobs to keep up with the payments. The story about Kyle hitting on both mother and daughter spread, and he was demoted at work. His already meager earnings were cut to a third, and now he's working part-time. My only regret was about my daughter, who is likely to repeat a year at college due to insufficient attendance, caused by sleeping in after partying. It was a result of her own actions. Having lost my dream home and my family due to a secret sale and the simultaneous revelation of the affair, I am now moving straight towards a new happiness. Evil runs 1,000 miles. Nowadays, both good and bad news spread instantly on social media. The actions one takes can often lead to the collapse of their future life. Perhaps it happens more easily now than in the past.